Hello, and welcome to the Fear Channel, a channel with regular broadcasts telling the most chilling of urban legends, ghost stories, and forays into the darkest corners of the human mind. Those faint of heart or prone to night terrors should proceed at their own risk. Tonight's story is the cannibalism of Sawney Bean, Christy Cleek, and Tristicloke.
Alexander Sawney Bean was born in East Lothian sometime during the 1500s. His father was a ditch digger and hedge trimmer, and Bede tried to take up the family trade, but quickly realized that he had little taste for honest labor. He left home with a vicious woman who apparently shared his inclinations. The couple ended up at a coastal cave in Beane Head between Girvan and Ballantrae, where they lived undiscovered for some 25 years. The cave was 200 yards deep, and during high tide the entrance was blocked by water. The couple eventually produced 8 sons, 6 daughters, 18 grandsons, and 14 granddaughters. Various grandchildren were products of incest. Lacking the inclination for regular labor, the clan thrived by laying careful ambushes at night to rob and murder individuals or small groups. The bodies were brought back to the cave where they were dismembered and eaten. Leftovers were pickled, and discarded body parts would sometimes wash up on nearby beaches. The body parts and disappearances did not go unnoticed by the local villagers, but the Beans stayed in the caves by day and took their victims at night. The clan was so secretive that the villagers were unaware of the murderers living nearby. As more significant notice of the disappearances was taken, several organized searches were launched to find the culprits. One search took note of the Telltale Cave, but the men refused to believe anything human could live in it. Frustrated, and in a frenetic quest for justice, the townspeople lynched several innocents, and the disappearances continued. Suspicion often fell on local innkeepers, since they were the last known to see many of the missing people alive. One fateful night, the Beans ambushed a married couple riding from a fair on one horse, but the man was skilled in combat, deftly holding off the clan with sword and pistol. The clan fatally mauled the wife when she fell to the ground in the conflict. Before they could take the resilient husband, a large group of fairgoers appeared on the trail, and the Beans fled. With the Beans' existence finally revealed, it wasn't long before King James VI of Scotland, who would later become King James I of England, heard of the atrocities and decided to lead a manhunt with a team of 400 men and several bloodhounds. They soon found the Beans' previously overlooked cave in Beane Head. The cave was scattered with human remains, having been the scene of many murders and cannibalistic acts. The clan was captured alive and taken in chains to Tolbooth Jail in Edinburgh, then transferred to Leigh, where they were promptly executed without trial. The men had their genitalia cut off, hands and feet severed, and were allowed to bleed to death. The women and children, after watching the men die, were burnt alive. There is another similar story from Scotland that took place a couple hundred years prior to the Bean incident. Christy Cleek, originally born Andrew Christie, was a butcher from Perth. The cannibalistic acts of Christy Cleek took place during a severe famine in the mid-14th century. Around this time there were floods, livestock sickness, and plagues of mice and rats throughout Scotland. Christy joined a group of scavengers in the foothills of the Grampians. When one of the party died of starvation, Christy put his butcher skills to work on the corpse and provided his companions with a ready meal. The group developed a taste for human flesh as, under Christy's leadership, they began to ambush travelers in the passes of the Grampians, feeding on their bodies and those of their horses. It is alleged that before attacking, Christy would haul his victims from their mounts with a hook on a rod. This implement added the Cleek to his moniker, as Cleek is Scottish for crook. 30 riders apparently died at Christy's hands. Eventually, the company was defeated by an armed force from Perth, except for Christy himself, who supposedly escaped and re-entered society under a new name. There are also a few vague mentions of a mysterious figure named Tristicloke. Around the same time as Christy Cleek, this story dates back to 1341. Tristicloke was a man rumored to live off in the woods. When hungry, he would steal children, murder women, and had been seen eating their flesh as if he was a wolf. Stories like these were eerily common in late medieval and early Renaissance Scotland. In addition to plagues and disease, frequent fighting between the English and Scottish left much of the Scottish countryside decimated. This meant that many farmlands were destroyed. Harvests were poor. It would seem cannibalism, while still considered taboo and morally deplorable by most of the citizenry, became more popular when the only other option was to starve to death.